Welcome to the Tech Panel.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The podcast where tech minds meet.
Oh, hey, before we get started today, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell.
Welcome to the Tech Panel. I'm Arvin.
And I'm Jamie.
Today, we're diving into the history and evolution of AI with our guest, John Crook, a tech industry veteran who's been working with AI a long time before it became mainstream. From the early days of machine learning to today's AI-driven world, John has seen it all. He's worked across global tech hubs, led companies, earned patents, and now helps businesses prepare for the future of AI. We'll explore how AI has evolved, the key breakthroughs that shaped it, and where it's heading next. John, welcome to the Tech Panel. It's a pleasure having you on the show. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your interaction. You both met each other rather recently at an event. You want to walk me through that event?
Yeah, so John and I met at the Brisbane Business Networking event.
Yep.
Did I get that out right? I think I
I
did.
think
Yeah. Which is just, a wonderful event that I found it on LinkedIn. I'm sure you probably did as well.
Yep.
And we met there and I was, chatting away to everybody and I started speaking to John and I think we spoke. You were definitely the person I spoke to for the longest.
Okay.
You have been on an interesting journey and you deliver that journey in a fantastic manner.
Okay.
So
Lots to live up to.
I sent John an email and I said, can you please come on the tech panel? And then I put in brackets, don't say no, because, I had to make sure to get you in. A little bit of emotional blackmail there.
Yep.
But here you are.
It
So
worked.
thank you.
You're welcome. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So I guess let's go. You started in tech how long ago?
40 years ago now.
Yep. So and you went through obviously the .com boom.
Yep.
How did that feel?
That felt great. At the time I was in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
Very exciting. There was a great spirit of optimism about the future. It was exciting that I'd come home from work and things that we'd been doing at work were on the news.
Yeah.
It just made you feel really good. Employers were falling over themselves to get tech people to come and work for them because there was such a shortage.
Yep.
And every time I seemed to turn around, Intel, I was working for Intel Corporation at the time, Intel seemed to have announced a new bonus or a new scheme where you get your birthday off as a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
They were just falling over themselves to be nice to all the tech people. The work was interesting. Things seemed to be moving fast and just very exciting.
What were you doing? You said you were working with Intel at the time. What did the role look like?
I mean, I was working in software. I'd always worked in software. People quite often surprised to find out Intel have far more software engineers than they have hardware engineers. So they pour a lot of money into trying to develop new software that needs more powerful computers to run on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working in speech recognition there at the time, and that needed a more powerful computer. That way, if the software is successful and everybody starts to use it, they all have to buy a computer.
Just thinking that
Yep.
there's a company creating more and more advanced technology that it's forcing the market to have to buy more hardware.
Well, it's not forcing the market because unless you provide a service or a product that people actually want, it's not going to work. So you're kind of seeding the market, if you like, but you're not forcing people to buy it. The product has to be good and it has to work. If it does, people will go out and buy those new computers, which is exactly what Intel wants.
So starting off in Austin, Texas, working for Intel, walk us through that continued journey.
I was there for 3.5 years. Of course, the dot-com boom turned into the bust.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Intel started getting rid of various departments, and I took an opportunity to take redundancy and take a bit of time with my family. We ended up coming to Brisbane. That was in 2003, so that was a little after the bust.
Yeah.
And got here in 2003, needed to get a job, didn't know anybody. Managed to get a job working for Softlink, which was a Brisbane business. I just got a job as a programmer. It was hard to get a job in 2003. Maybe it was because it was post bust. So started there, ended up becoming software dev manager. This is very brief portrait history. I don't know if you wanted more, but then in 2013, Softlink were acquired by Constellation Software, part of Constellation Software, which was called Polaris. And that was just a great thing for me because they're a business that's growing. And because they're growing, they need to constantly educate people on how to become that next level of manager, that next level up. Because one of the constraints for them growing is having enough staff that are all trained up to work the way they like to work. So instead of just carrying on in software, I ended up becoming the CEO. Did that for about 3 years, and then went to the level above that, where I was working in acquisition, basically buying businesses, software businesses, and making them, educating them to work the way that Constellation, and my part of Constellation, which was Valaris, the way that they worked. And it was great.
And sorry, make sure I get this right. Started off at Intel, made it over to another company, Polaris. They got acquired. Where did it go from there?
Well, I've pretty much taken you. Well, I ended up as what was called a group leader. So I had 8 software businesses, and I was responsible for making sure, everything ran smoothly, training them, educating them, giving them opportunities. You would, when you saw a CEO had a problem in a particular area, you try and link them up with a CEO that recently had the same problem and solve it. So once you work for a business that instead of being one business, it's literally hundreds and hundreds of businesses, and you get to know all the characters in those different businesses, which was a big part of the job. You can put people in touch with each other. Now, you're not saying you must do it the way this person did it, but you're putting them in touch and saying, see what you think. See if you think that fits your business. If it does, then that's maybe a good way to solve a particular problem you have.
And there's a bit of a rumor that a lot of the success of that company is driven off the back of being operated off a decentralized model. Is there any truth to that? I think maybe, can you explain what that is for listeners as well?
Yeah. So, for example, when Intel acquired a business, because I was working for a business that was acquired by Intel, that's how I ended up working for them. Everything becomes Intellified. Everybody basically has to follow the same procedures, the same way of doing things. And after, a year, you don't really have any identity left of the business that had been acquired. Constellation is completely the opposite. They believe that if you've got a business that's been serving a market for 20 years and has been successful, and those are the sort of businesses that we would buy, you don't want to go in there and start changing everything. Why would you? You might have some suggestions, you might want to give them some extra ideas, but you don't want to go in there and start changing everything. Even the culture of the business can be important to leave that in place. So instead of going in and changing things, you pretty much leave them running the business the way they want to do it. That they want to run it. There are a few things that you require them to change, but they're things like making sure they're following any legal obligations, making sure that their network security policy is up to scratch. We can't have people being hacked and having customer data at risk. So apart from a few things like that, they can use whatever processes and whatever tools they want to use, and they can run things the way that they want to run them. What we do share with them, though, is, hey, this is how we've run things at all our other 1,000 or 800 or however many businesses that they have now. This is how we've run things. We think this is a good idea. Maybe you might want to, take some of these ideas and see which ones apply to your business.
This is really interesting. I've never actually heard of a company actually doing this. I've heard of this in theory, but it seems to go against most conventional practices for businesses where there's a lot more pride and they believe, acquired you may be great, but I was great, or I'm greater, and the only thing that'll make you better is for you to start following my path.
I mean, humility is one of the values of all the leaders at Constellation. If you can't learn as much from the businesses that you acquire, if you can't learn from them, then you're probably doing something wrong. So the idea that just because you're the acquiring business, you know how to run a particular software business that perhaps makes software for hairdressing salons, and perhaps they've been doing it for 20 years. The idea that you can come in and say, no, you've got your screens all wrong, your structure of your sales team's all wrong, would be a bit mad. So it's the opposite of what you learn in an MBA. In an MBA, you'll learn, when you acquire, you're going to get economies of scale because you're because you're a much bigger business and you maybe only need one set of human resources policy, one set of finance policy, and so on and so forth, you get all these economies of scale. But Constellation believe focus on a particular customer segment, and the people that know that are the people that have been running the business for 20 years, is far more powerful than any kind of economies of scale and trying to regiment and force people to do things a particular way.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think humility is a fantastic lesson to take away from Constellation. And they always guise the whole entire, we're just going to change a couple of things here.
Yeah.
They use the word, I'm sure you would have heard this at some stage where they try to do it. We're just streamlining a couple things. It's always that word that they throw out there where they're really just stripping out the DNA of a company and making it.
Have you been through a merger like that?
I have gone through some very similar processes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I've been through 2, and it's like, we all know what that means.
Yeah, exactly right.
We all know what streamlining means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other lessons that companies in the world can take away from Constellation?
They're very thorough at what they do.
Mhm.
So when you look to acquire a business, for example, you go in and you meet them. And often the first thing they want to show you is their software.
Yeah.
We're not interested. We're not interested in their software. We don't care what the screens look like. Not initially, at least. We're going to look at the finances. Everything, the story about the business, the story of the business is told by the numbers. So, for example, they might tell us, yeah, our customers love our software. They think it's great. We keep doubling the number of customers every 18 months, whatever. Okay, we're going to go and look at the finances for the last 3 or 5 years, and we're going to understand in detail what's going on in this business. So, for example, most of the businesses that we would acquire had quite a large amount of recurring revenue. Maybe 85 or 90% of revenue would be recurring.
Mm-hmm.
Means you don't have to go out and keep selling. You're just selling to acquire new customers to replace the ones that have left, maybe. So once you understand that the recurring revenue is very important, the next thing you're going to look at is what is your customer attrition? Do you lose 5% of your customers every year? Do you lose 25% of your customers every year? So if you're buying a business with, let's say, $3 million a year recurring revenue and 5% customer attrition, well, things have got to go pretty badly for the thing to turn to custard in a short period of time. But if you've got a business where they're losing 30% of their customers every year, then obviously you've got to make sure that you can carry on replacing those customers with new ones. So, the bottom line here is everything is understood clearly by numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's through finance reports and records. And the other great thing that you can do with all that is they've got their own secret source ratios, numbers, where they can compare any one business with any other business. So when you've got hundreds of them, you've got a pretty good idea roughly how much money you should be spending on different parts of the business. Doesn't mean it's a rule, but if a business is underperforming, first thing you can look at is, well, where are their numbers different? When we benchmark them against these other businesses, where are they different? And then you'll drill down into that and understand it better, and then you can understand how to help the business. So they're very thorough as well, as I mentioned. So the numbers, the way they acquire businesses is done very carefully. They put an awful lot of work into making sure the businesses they acquire are going to work out. I mean, they're a serial acquirer. So if you buy a business, let's say for $10 million, and you get $3 million a year revenue from them, so after 2 years you've got $6 million, right? What are you going to do with it? Well, what they do with it is they go and buy another business. That's what they do. A lot of people that try to be serial acquirers, they'll go and buy a business for $10 million, and they go, great, at the end of first year, we'll have $3 million profit there. They go and look at the end of the first year, and they've lost $1 million. Why? Because they didn't check out the business properly. Constellation have done this so many times, they know the things to look for in what they're acquiring, and that's what enables them to be very thorough and very reproducibly accurate in terms of buying businesses that are going to be a good investment for the company. And that's borne out in their returns over the last 17 years plus.
I can completely relate to the idea of due diligence before acquiring a company. My mind goes to this sad corner of my mind. I just kind of worry when we reduce companies down to the numbers, we kind of strip it of some of the things that make it great.
Yeah.
I use like Ferrari as an example.
Yeah.
If you would look at them, I think in like the 70s or 80s, most people would be like, that is a failing business, and I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. But if you really looked at what they were trying to achieve and how well they were doing it, aside from sales,
Yeah.
you'd feel like there's something special here.
But is that approach reproducible? We need whereby, they buy maybe 100 businesses a year plus at the moment. You need a method that's reproducible and low risk. And the main goal is to return our investors, which is the shareholders. We have to give them a good return.
Yeah.
That's our main goal. So it might mean that we'll miss out on some great opportunities, but it's a reproducible method, and it works if you know what you're doing.
Can I get into, which was one of my favorite things when I had a chat with you before, AI and your pure knowledge on how far back it goes. And you said something to me that day, and, was along the lines of, it's not a direct quote, but how do we learn, like, to go forward? And it's to look at history.
Yes.
And then you went and told me how long AI has actually been around, and I had no idea.
Yes.
So I guess, can you go into what was the first, with it, like, absolutely just like breaking through ceilings at the moment, AI?
Yep.
What was the first instance that AI really made a difference? Back. Like, what was the first one thing where they were like, oh, there's been a breakthrough here?
I mean, the story of AI really started in 1795. I don't know if that's what you wanted me to go.
That is. I want you to go from that.
But I didn't know it was AI.
I mean, we don't have to go through year by year.
No, we won't.
Okay.
But in 1795, Carl Gauss was looking at the problem of how to draw a straight line through a load of dots on a graph.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists have been doing this for a couple of hundred years, but there was no definitive, this is the exact straight line that fits these points you've collected in your experiment, just done in your lab. They would guess it, or they would use some not very good methods, but there was no definitive way. And he looked at it, he was only 18. He looked at it and he came up with what we now call the method of least squares or linear regression. But that's just a fancy term for, he came up with the definitive way to say, this is the straight line. Mm-hmm. When you do a machine learning course, I was surprised to find out that is the first thing you learn, and apparently that is machine learning. I just thought, hey, that's just got a graph. You put in the value of X, it tells you the value of Y.
Yep.
It's basically the first example of machine learning where you have a model. The model in this case was a straight line. Mm-hmm. You put in a value, X, and you get a value Y out. It's a prediction. Machine learning was all about, you give data in, you have a model, and you get a prediction out. 1795 was the first time really that we had solid maths to do that. And it was, I guess, the first good example of it being applied was 1801, when an Italian astronomer, Giuseppe Piazzi, discovered what he thought was a new planet. And it actually wasn't a new planet. It was we now call it a dwarf planet, but it was classified as an asteroid for a long time. But anyway, he discovered this new planet. Imagine his excitement. That's all astronomers wanted to do in those days, was discover new planets, because it's that they had the technology to do it. So unfortunately, this new planet wasn't really a planet, was heading behind the sun. So just a few months or 6 weeks after they discovered it, it went behind the sun, and I thought, oh no, we're never going to find it again. Anyway, Gauss came along. He looked at the measurements that had been taken, and he used the same method, the exact same method that he'd used, but instead of on a straight line, this was on an ellipse. Instead of there being 2 parameters, which is what you have in a straight line, there were 6 parameters. So you put in, with these parameters, you put your measurements in, and it will predict where the asteroid will be at any particular point in time. Again, that's machine learning. And the way he calculated the parameters in the elliptical model that he created was exactly the same way that we calculate parameters in a large language model today. By a method of optimization, you repeatedly calculate the errors, You make adjustments to the parameters to reduce the errors. You reduce the errors until they're really very much in line with what reality is. And then your model can now make a good prediction.
Did you know this?
The exact history? No, I did not.
I was like, I was just like, goes back that far.
Mine went as far as Turing. That was it.
As what?
Turing. Alan Turing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I didn't even know that.
1950.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Much more relevant.
Yeah, much more relevant. Yeah, I was like mind boggled. But so I guess with that,
Yep.
we have, in the last 10 years,
Yep.
there's been a mass acceleration.
Yep.
Why do you think that is?
So, I mean, AI struggled and potted along from the 50s onwards, getting better and better models, more and more complex mathematics. Wasn't really, I mean, it was solving some problems, but it wasn't being the thing, that I dream of and all people that watch Star Trek dream of, where you can just talk to a computer,
Yep.
which is what I want.
Yep.
So the next turning point then really, let's jump forward to 2012. So in 2012, there were two big factions in AI. There was the faction that were dominant, and they believed that the right way to progress AI was with rules-based logic, kind of maths way of building an AI, where everything can be reduced to some rules and some logic, and you crank the handle and you get your answer out of the other end. But you understand how you got your answer because you understood all the rules that you've made up, all the fancy maths that you've made up.
Mm-hmm.
There was another faction that had been around since the 60s, but had grown very, very slowly. And they were being cut off by the rest of the academics. They wouldn't publish their papers. We've got quotes from Jan LeCun, who's now head of AI at Meta, saying they wouldn't publish our papers. So these were the two factions. And the neural network people, the neural network faction, model an AI more on how our brain works. So how are they going to get their papers published? How are they going to get the funding they needed? So the good thing about the AI community, or one of the good things about the AI community, is they have these competitions. So they'll have a competition where people bring along their AI models, and competition what I'm going to explain is where you had to recognize images. And so whoever could recognize the images the best would win the competition.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, right, we'll put one in for the competition. So Jeffrey Hinton and Ilya Sutskever was at OpenAI for a long time. He worked on GPT-3, GPT-4, and from GPT-1 as well. They put an entry in anyway in September the 30th, 2012. And at the time, the best AIs would get roughly 1 in 4 pictures wrong. By the way, I've got to tell you the name of the competition. This is something the techs haven't learned, how to give snappy names to competitions. They called it the ILSVRC.
Oh.
It's the ImageNet Large Scale Visual Recognition Challenge, which they had every year. So they put their model in, and of course you can guess the outcome was that Jeffrey Hinton's team from the University of Toronto with Ilya Sutskever put in their model, and they won. Not only did they win, they raised the bar a long way. They got the error rate from roughly 25, 26% down to about 16%. And previous years, it had always moved by about 1%. So they made a massive leap forward. So now all of a sudden, all the AI people that had been making their models using more traditional techniques, they wanted to know how all this worked. And they came, obviously, and looked at all that code. From that year onwards, 2012, every year, the error rate went down by a long way until eventually I think 3 or 4 years later, they just stopped the competition because it was game over.
Yeah.
By now, AI has had an error rate well below humans. Human error rate was 5% on the ImageNet Large Scale Visual Recognition Challenge. AI is now down at 3-4%. So what I find interesting about that is for the past 150,000 years, the thing that had been able to recognize objects the best on this planet had been humans, and give it a name was a human. That's not, since 2015, that hasn't been the case. It's now a machine. So it's an example of something that humans are best at. Suddenly gets taken away from them. Now a machine is better at that. And that's never going to change. Machines are never going to drop back. So slowly, lots of the things that humans are best at are moving over. It's now an AI that's best at it. So that was the turning point. And then there were a few more things happen after that to get to ChatGPT, but that was the big turning point, getting the AI community to put neural networks forward and take them seriously. They also rebranded, by the way. They rebranded neural networks because it was banned at some conferences. You might have noticed they decided to rename it deep learning.
Oh, that's right.
It's a marketing term. Okay, it's a few other things, but the neural networks did get deep. They did get a lot bigger, but it was branding because neural networks were considered toys and not fit for purpose.
Interesting.
So that happened in 2012. Did you want to know the rest of the story up to ChatGPT?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. I mean, this is interesting. And I think
Absolutely.
like everybody is adapting AI like quick. And they need to, because that's how we're moving forward. But I do think there's importance into knowing how we got here. Yeah,
Definitely. Okay, look, I'll quickly go through another couple of key milestones. So again, this idea is we want to be able to talk to our computer, type in text and get a text response. We still couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So we can now deal with recognizing images, but it's easy to represent images as data because it's just pixels.
Yeah.
That wasn't a hard thing to do. How on earth do you take words and represent them as a list of numbers? Nobody knew how to do that very well. In 2013, just a year later, it was Google again, who came out with a famous paper known as the Word2Vec paper, Word2Vector. They came out with a method to basically turn any word into a vector, and a vector is just a list of numbers. Basically, the way that it works was they said, okay, well, let's imagine we can have a list of lots of attributes about any word. For example, there's an attribute for how fluffy it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's an attribute for how big it is. There's an attribute maybe for how heavy it is. Maybe there's an attribute for how hairy it is, and so on. Imagine, they ended up with 768 of these attributes. And they applied these to all words. By the way, it's just conceptual. They didn't really use the ones that I just mentioned. I just used that to explain it. They applied this to words, and they found that actually they ended up with something that was a little bit magical that they didn't really expect. So once they turned every word into a vector, which is a list of numbers, they noticed some strange things. So if you took the vector for king and subtracted the vector for male and added the vector for female, guess what vector you ended up with?
Queen.
You got it. So somehow they had this numerical representation of words that somehow seemed to embody what the word was about by representing it, in all these different dimensions, as I said. So that was the next key milestone. Next key milestone was 2017, probably the most famous paper now in AI, which was attention is all you need. So in 2017, they still had the problem. Remember, we've got to represent words somehow that make sense. So if you take the word bank in the sentence, the plane went into a bank and the merchant went into a bank. Well, in the two cases, the word bank, if you imagine where it would be in this vector space I was just talking about, completely different word. It's not representing the same thing at all, is it? But in English, it's the same word. Obviously, plane going into a bank means it goes into a turn. Merchant went into a bank. We're talking about a building.
Mm-hmm.
So the transformer model was created again by Google, and again it was all published and given away to everybody. They must be shooting themselves they must be very upset about shooting themselves in the foot like that. But anyway, the transformer model was made, and every word in a sentence becomes kind of merged with all the words around it. And they find a way of figuring out which words are important to merge into the word bank in this case. And it turns it into a new vector representation that now really embodies the concept of the thing that we're talking about. So either the bank being the building or the bank meaning the airplane tilted. So now we had a way of representing words in context. And that the rest is history. Pretty soon after that, once you've got a way of representing the words, you just take as many words as you can, perhaps from Reddit or perhaps from all the books on the internet or anything you can find on the internet, and you train a model to try and predict the next word. So take an easy example. If you give it the phrase, the cat sat on the, you've got to try and train it to come up with met.
Yep.
So you just take all these sentences from all these words that you've already collected off the internet, and you're training your model. By training, I mean you're adjusting all the parameters until it can get that next word correct. And they found that it worked. Somehow, it was able to start predicting words, what the next word should be. You might say to me, well, that's not what ChatGPT does. ChatGPT chats back to me. But all it really does is it only predicts the next word. In fact, if I'm going to be technical, it's a token, which is sometimes part of a word, but let's just keep it at words. It predicts one word, then you take the whole thing with the next word and you feed it back in again. And then it predicts one more word. You take that, you feed it back in again. It predicts one more word. Does this over and over. And somehow it seemed that it was making sense with what it came out with. And people were amazed. And GPT-1 and GPT-2, I think 2018, 2019, they were impressive, but they were a bit quirky still. GPT-3 was the first one where people started to wonder, crikey, this thing seems like it's almost human.
Yep.
And then they realized it could do code.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever expected it would be able to do code. You'd ask it a coding question, or how do I do this in Excel? And it would tell you.
Yeah.
And they got better and better. The rest is recent history, GPT-4, and now the recent model was from OpenAI. The model was obviously from Meta. Anthropic, or a competitor, people that were spun off from OpenAI. There's all these teams out there now. And here's another thing about why it's taken off so much in the last 10 years is if you look at the number of PhDs being produced in AI, if you look at the amount of money being thrown into AI research and development, it's just an exponential curve. It's going up like that. There are so many more people and so many more teams working on this problem all over the world. And that's one of the reasons we're making so much progress. And who knows what's going to happen in the next few years. So there you go. There's a brief potted history of what's happened in AI.
You've silenced him.
Yeah, it's amazing recollection of historical events related to GPT, AI modeling in general.
Come in.
You've got a delivery.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to say it's the police.
That's right. Come to get you.
Yeah.
You've let out all the AI secrets.
Yep.
It's been parked for hours. Geez, I don't even know where to go from here. So it sounds like you've had a pretty strong connection to AI and machine learning.
Yep.
Where do you think it made the critical pass from machine learning to AI? Because you say machine learning, that's just predictive modeling. AI is communication.
So AI isn't well defined, and machine learning is. Machine learning is any system which gets better at doing what it's doing the more data you give it.
Yeah.
So that's a formal definition of machine learning that most people accept. AI, artificial intelligence, probably we all heard it first on Star Trek, or when we heard about Turing and maybe read The Imagination Game, which was a one paragraph in the paper that he wrote back in 1950. Some definitions say it's the ability to do tasks normally attributed to human intelligence. Well, hang on, you're using the word intelligence in your definition. It's never been that well defined. It's just machine learning and a bit more. It's not necessarily about communication, but a definition is it's anything that you would normally associate with human intelligence. But I think that's a bad definition. But it's hard to define properly. And AGI, you probably heard about all the arguments to do with AGI. AGI is it stands for Artificial General Intelligence, supposed to be, represent the idea that it's an AI that instead of just being able to do one specific thing, like play chess or play Go or recognize images, it can do it pretty much anything that a human can do. But then people argue, well, is it anything that an average human can do? Is it anything that the best human can do? My favorite definition of AGI is from Steve Wozniak, which is, he said, I believe we've got AGI when a robot can walk into anybody's kitchen and make itself a cup of coffee. I think
Yeah.
that's a good test.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally separate AI into two different models, or let's call them concepts. I think AI before AI that was publicly known was, can we make something sentient, right? And I think that's getting confused with what we're seeing right now as a technology that's marketable to the public, which has nothing to do with AI, really, at all. It's really, like you said, machine learning mixed with, you can ask it in a way that's familiar with you without crunching codes or anything, and you get an output that's something that you can the average person can read and digest.
Yep.
Right. I'm wondering that there was a critical point here. There was a break in between AI and machine learning, right? And are we still playing with machine learning, or is it really this new AI model that we're looking at? Or are you just implying, no, there is no real separation between AI and machine learning? They're really just two the same.
Yeah, I think they flow into each other. I mean, I don't necessarily consider that something has to be sentient to be AI. I mean, you could have a system doing the job of a human, which previously took an intelligent human to do it, doing that job, but not being sentient. So I think the sentient part is, yeah, you'd see that in the sci-fi movies, and you might ask philosophical questions along those lines. But who knows if I don't even know you're sentient, really. I mean, you can get
We're
into
playing
it.
this game.
Yeah. So, and also the definitions of consciousness and being sentient aren't, philosophers will argue about that for 5 years while we're figuring out how to get a machine to make a cup of coffee in somebody's kitchen.
Yep.
So I think of it in terms of what can it do that previously took a human to do it. And, it can already, I mean, a tack I probably should take us on there is a caution that when you talk to tech people, they'll, once a problem solved and a piece of tech can do what previously was done by a human, they'll assume that that's going to be it. It's all going to be done by machines from now on. That's not what happens historically. So I'll give you a quote from Geoffrey Hinton. He said, "We should stop training radiologists now. It's quite obvious that AI can recognize images of where people have got various types of disease much better than any radiologist can." And he was correct. And he said this in 2016. And since 2016, the demand for radiologists in Australia, New Zealand, and the USA has gone up by 5% every year. So tech people will look at it and say, well, a machine can do this now, so obviously it's all going to be done by a machine, right?
Yeah.
Technology can change quickly. Rolling it out can be very difficult. Human society, there's a lot of inertia in the way we do things. People don't just change like that. So just because something can be done by an AI doesn't mean it will be. And there's lots of examples of that.
I can see where you're coming from in that regard. I mean, my mind goes to, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a Debbie Downer here in this regard, but I can only imagine if they made a system that could find cancer better than a human, no one's just going to make it really affordable for the hospitals. And that would probably be one of the bigger blockers, right? Like whenever I speak to someone, I've got a few friends that are doctors, and whenever we talk to them about the technology, they're like, oh, we wish we could afford that at this place. So, like they all are raising the prices of everything so the hospital can finally afford to get the new machine in the hospital. And I kind of wonder, like, are we really just the ones shooting ourselves in the face right now, keeping ourselves from getting these things because we're just holding ourselves back due to how much money you can potentially make?
Well, there's certainly people that do hold things back to make money.
Yeah.
I don't know that specifically is happening in AI. A lot of the models, of course, are being open sourced. So once they're open sourced, anybody can run them. Of course, you might need somebody who knows how to run them to help you.
Yep.
But in the health field, I'll give you another example, because I like talking in numbers and data, because that's what Constellation taught everybody to do. Let's just look at a few numbers in the health field. So in the United States, they have this thing called the USMLE, United States Medical Licensing Exam. Part of the exam is a set of multiple choice questions. Every doctor that wants to be licensed to operate in the USA has to take this exam. And the pass mark for the exam is, guess what the pass mark is? You'll be shocked.
Let's go for 85%.
60%. 60%. And by the way, according to CDC, 370,000 people a year die every year in the USA because of misdiagnosis. Another over 500,000 have severe limitations to the rest of their for the rest of their life. Again, misdiagnosis.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll come back to how AI could or could not help here. So we go back to 2020. So you can give this exam to an AI. So here you go. And by the way, these questions are very hard. I read them. I don't know what most of the words are. So they're tough things. You have to diagnose what the problem is, and there's a specific answer. So in 2022, the best AI could score 42%. Remember, a doctor has to pass with 60%.
Sorry, what year was that?
2022, just
So 3
not
years
very long ago.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah, not long ago at all. Last year in May, Google again published a paper about MedGemini. MedGemini was a version of the Gemini model specifically trained to answer health questions. Humans need to get 60%. The best humans get 87%. 87% is an expert, which is close to what you were guessing. The Gemini model in May last year got 92%. Already better than the best human doctors. So who's using this? Are we using this in our country to prevent misdiagnoses? No, it's just not happening. There's inertia there. People are suspicious.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting, by the way, that people should be diagnosed by an AI. I'm suggesting that doctors should refer to it. And once they've done their history and they've collected all the symptoms from their patient, they should be using these tools. And, they should be interpreting what they say, but then they should be applying their doctor's skills to decide what is the best course of treatment for the patient. I mean, I see that this will make a big difference. It'll just take years for people to start using it. And hopefully we can cut down on misdiagnosis and cut down on unnecessary deaths. And the other place where I think that will be used is in countries where perhaps they don't even have a doctor in a town.
Yep.
They have a nurse. And again, they could be used perhaps to do diagnosis. And I don't want doctors to think that I'm suggesting all there is to being a doctor is a diagnosis. There's much more to it than that. But that's an important step of what they do. And I'm sure they'll start using it at some point.
Okay.
I suspect that it has using in the medical field is more related to like the Top Gun quandary, where back in the 70s, we had all of these fighter pilots and missiles were introduced and we became infinitely over-reliant on something that found the target and automatically went out. And then they're like, well, what do you do after you have no missiles left? Do you just wait there to get shot down? And I bet that's what would happen if you had doctors that had a system that could automatically find all of these things for you. They'd turn into those same pilots that are just like, I'm now over-reliant on a tool. And it's like, well, what happens when the tool is gone? Do you just not do anything? I kind of wonder if that's where the medical community is coming from. Like, they need these people to actively engage and continue to try to be better at that job. And I feel like a tool like GPT has to be better than a human.
Yeah.
Like, call it whatever you want. I find it impossible to believe that any human being for any reason is even better than the 40% one. Because after you graduate, people aren't studying anymore. Like, a lot of that stuff's going right out the door, and any of us can go to a doctor right now, and every one of us can relate to being in a room with one of them. And you're like, you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Or watching them like on Google.
Yeah. Or they're Googling it. That's exactly right. They
Yeah.
literally Google it right in front of you. And you're
It's
like,
I'm like, oh, yeah, I am dying of some
you
rare.
made fun of me when I came in with my Google search
earlobe
results.
cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Google could have told me that myself.
So hopefully they'll start using MedGemini.
I really hope they do too.
Yeah.
You run into all of these interesting problems, and the same thing is happening for like vehicles, autonomous driving.
Yep.
They're trying to figure out like the technology's there. You can use it.
Yep.
Like, of course, America's like, Put it on the road. Who cares? You know?
I know. And you see that one that went around the car park that was out of control.
Yeah.
And it just kept going around
Yeah.
the car.
And then I was watching a recording of a think tank, and they're all just these group of unnecessarily intelligent people that are just beating this dead horse from every different angle.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what happens if like someone crosses the road? And they're like, oh, avoid it. Well, what if two people cross the road and you have to hit one of them? They're like, well, hit either one of them. You have to hit one of them. They're like, what if he's a criminal? And they're like, oh, God, here we go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you've still got to program all this stuff into a system. And I imagine there's just an infinite amount of ways you can get caught up in the problem here, especially when you introduce legalities into it at the same time. Like, I'm sure all of these can give you the best answer, but the best answer is not the best legal answer for you, is it?
I mean, so you were talking about the trolley bus philosophical problem.
Yes, that's
the
right.
trolley bus problem. So full self-drive in the Tesla did have a lot of rules like that into it. They didn't have rules. Is it a criminal or not?
No,
Obviously,
no.
they didn't know. But they did have a lot of extra logic built in. About 18 months ago, took it all out. They took it all out. Well, not all. It's not that simple, but basically, they just, in the same way that we trained ChatGPT on words in, and it appears to give sensible words out the other end in a response to a prompt, they feed their video into their model that they build, and it makes the next action. Turn the wheel a little bit, put your foot on the brake a little bit. Well, it doesn't really have a foot, but anyway, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it does now. So the logic in there that there are two people on the crossing, how do I decide I'm going too fast? I need to hit one of them. It's not in there. So unless you, the way to get it to do what you want is to provide it with training examples. So you have to train it on lots of examples where two people ran out, and they do that. So they make up synthetic videos to train full self-drive on, and it's getting better and better all the time. When will full self-drive get there? Who knows? What I do know is Elon Musk has been saying 18 months since 2017.
Yeah.
And he's still saying 18. Well, I think he might be saying 12 months now.
Oh, getting closer.
It'll be exciting when it gets there.
Yeah.
Will it get there? I think it will get there. Is it going to be 1 year or 5 years? Who knows?
Again, I still bet it's ready to go. I bet people are just getting in the way of it again. They're just like, how much can we slow this thing down?
I don't think it's ready to go because if you watch the latest examples of full self-drive, which you can go and watch on YouTube, every time there's a new release, people go out and make a quick clip.
Yep.
There'll be places where it takes the wrong turn, goes down a one-way street. But this is from millions of people, all their full self-drive, but they'll appear on YouTube, and so it is still making errors. I mean, the real question is, to my mind, is what standard do we want full self-drive to be before we let it loose on the roads?
That's exactly my point. Like, could you hold that same standard to a human being? Like, are human beings not eligible to be on the road if they accidentally drive down a one direction? I did it in Sydney.
Yep.
First moved here. I was like, it was this direction. It just randomly turned the opposite. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's
the best thing. So does it need to be as good as a human driver? Does it need to be 10 times lower risk of having an accident?
Yeah.
100 times lower risk? As soon as you start talking in terms of the amount of risk involved, you can see who's going to make this decision.
Yep.
It's going to be the insurance company.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll once if full self-drive appears and they realize that there's 1/100th a chance of having an accident than a human-driven car, there'll be competitive pressure. They will drop the premiums for people with full self-drive. That's what will happen. And that's when everybody will want it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
I think you've got a question here, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I've been dying to ask. DeepSeek.
Oh, DeepSeek.
I want to know. So it has interrupted in a explosive way. It's crashed part of the US stock market. Why could they do it so much cheaper? Is it because I don't even know why they could do it. It was like a seventh of the cost or 17th of the something crazy, like
Much less than
crazy.
that. They reckon they did it for $5.6 million. Where, OpenAI would spend on a training run, $100 million.
Yeah.
So I'll just quickly explain what DeepSeek is. So
Yep.
it's a new model, first one came out on Christmas Day.
Yep.
I think that was a message. Came out on Christmas Day when we were all on holiday. And the latest one came out a few days ago that they call Thinking. It's the Thinking model.
Okay.
And they claim it's as good as OpenAI's O1 Thinking model, which is currently the latest one that we have access to. I gave it a go at the weekend. I immediately made it my go-to AI for doing coding problems.
Okay.
I'd been doing it with Claude 3.5, which had been my favorite. And one of those things, if you use AI for doing coding for you, you'll know what it's like sometimes. You ask it to do something and it gets something a little bit wrong, and you send it back and it'll try and fix it. And after a while, you just give it, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
So I had this nuanced thing. I tried to get Anthropic's Claude 3.5 to do it half a dozen times. And I thought, I'll just try it on DeepSeek. Nailed it. First time, straight away. Worked perfectly. So I made it my go-to model for coding, certainly. But anyway, it's a thinking model, and you can see it thinking, which is quite interesting. Well, thinking in quotes, it's not really thinking. But it ponders and it discusses with itself almost what it should do in response to the prompt. And is it as good as O1? I think it is. Yeah. You'll find some people that say it's not quite as good as O1. I think it is. They produce benchmarks always. The benchmarks show it's pretty much on a par with O1. That's where they show graphs of how well it passed this test and that test and the other test. And it's good. So how do they do it? Well, this is open source. This should be expected. The way open source works is, big companies may release a model and its weights, which has happened. So Meta has released Llama 2, which is a very sophisticated large language model. It's considered frontier, not quite as good as OpenAI's model. It's very good. And there are thousands of labs all over the world downloading these large language models and working to improve them. So that's what these guys did in China. They made some improvements and found ways to run it using a lot less memory. Some of the things they did had been tried before, some of them hadn't. One of the reasons they were able to run it on much smaller machines, although we don't know the machines, there's a lot we don't know, so we have to be careful. We don't know they ran it on smaller machines to train it, but we think they did, is they used a model which is called mixture of experts. So these big models have got so many parameters in, you need massive computers to run them normally. That you might have 700 billion parameters. That's a massive number of parameters. 700 billion parameters in one of these models. Trying to tune all those and change them to make sure they get better and better and better at what they're doing requires massive amounts of memory, massive amounts of computer power. With mixture of experts, it's a type of large language model where you might have, say, 10 areas of expertise. For example, you might have one model that's good at doing code, one model that's good at creative writing, one model that's good at historical analysis, whatever. So you have all these different models. So the DeepSeek models were all 37 billion parameters, much, much smaller. The total model is 671 billion, but each expert was 37 billion. So you need a lot less memory to be able to train these, and you can do it a lot more efficiently. Now, mixture of experts had been done before, so they didn't invent that. That had been done by Mistral a couple of years ago. So I don't think it's a China USA thing. I think it's a open source thing, and it's open source is catching up with proprietary, and it may even overtake it. Because at some point, the power of having thousands of people all around the world being able to independently work on these models and improve them will outstrip anything that you can do. That's the theory, and that's what's happened here. Why did it crash the stock market? Well, mainly because it didn't. It caused a 17% drop in NVIDIA's price, most of which has been recovered today. because the stock market is volatile.
Volatile, yeah.
People are scared. They get scared of things. Everybody thought, oh no, so, half a dozen Chinese people can do this in a shed, which is the way some people looked at it, which isn't really right, but that's how a lot of people thought about it. Then they won't need the NVIDIA chips. If they don't need the NVIDIA chips, NVIDIA stock's going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
But NVIDIA was probably overpriced anyway. But it is an important lesson. And, the USA, Silicon Valley, probably are a little bit arrogant that they've got a lead. Google too, they've got their Silicon Valley people working on AI. But people forget that a lot of their work comes out of London. DeepMind is an English company which Google bought, and a lot of the innovations that they're doing at Google come out of London, not Silicon Valley. So there are people around the world. We've had some good models come out of the UAE, United Arab Emirates. So it's not just Silicon Valley. They probably are a little bit arrogant. They shouldn't be. And people have called it a Sputnik moment. Have you come across that? They've said DeepSeek is the Sputnik moment. So Sputnik was in 1957 when the Americans thought they were ahead in the space race. And lo and behold, the Russians launched a satellite before them. They were shocked. Because they thought they were ahead, people are calling it a Sputnik moment for Silicon Valley. Yeah, they need to realize that they don't necessarily have all the best people in the world.
Interesting. Thank you for that, because I wanted your thoughts on that. Now, you probably realize that lovely Jess walked in before with a delivery.
Okay.
So this is a viewer question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. If you could leverage AI to solve one major inefficiency in your day-to-day life, what would it be? And it can be as ridiculous as you want.
Day-to-day life? Okay, well, thanks for the question. I'm in thinking mode.
You're in thinking mode.
I mostly have a relaxed life these days, so I don't have a lot of inefficiencies that I'm looking to fix.
I would want something to do my hair and put on my makeup.
No.
Can it be like a robot AI?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I want hair and makeup. I want to wake up.
Yep.
And then just be like, and it's on. My hair's done. You don't want that too?
Nope. No.
Really?
Yeah, hair and makeup is not on my priority list.
Ah.
Shocker.
It is. Yeah, I'm shocked by that.
It is something that I focus a lot of my time and energy on most days, but
well,
passion project.
If we're allowed to go science fiction, yeah, I'll have an AI that puts a thing on my head and I go to sleep, have a perfect night's sleep.
Oh my gosh,
wake
that'd
up
be amazing.
Completely refreshed.
Yeah, I've changed my mind.
Having had a wonderful dream.
Yeah.
That I can remember.
Yeah, I want a refund on mine. I want that too.
That's probably, that's probably more than a few years away.
Yeah.
I would want something that makes food. Some restaurant quality food.
Now I want a refund on that and I want that.
I would never, I feel like if we could solve for the world
hunger,
not just hunger, like I think what food is accessible. Food is not a limited commodity in the world. There is infrastructure that is limited in certain areas of the world, but we can absolutely put food in those places.
Yeah.
Just time and money. I feel like where there is food, but people are very unhealthy, is lack of like education or don't know how to take what ingredients they have available to them to make things. Yeah, like
that's me.
People be surprised. Like
I'm going to leave
flour,
here
oil,
and go
water,
directly
yeast.
to McDonald's.
Yeah,
I
serious.
I am.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you had something that literally, like, how much money does the average person spend on going out? And people always say like, "Oh, I love the experience of going out." Like, if your experience with restaurant quality food, same thing or better than a restaurant, I guarantee you, no one would ever go out there again.
Okay.
They would go for places for views.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they would value the price of that food infinitely less. Like, why would I spend $2,000 on a Michelin restaurant? I've got my
Can I have all three of my answers?
My food
Because
AI over here.
I'm going to have a good night's sleep.
Yep.
Going to get my hair and makeup done for the food that
Mhm.
yours is going to prepare me so I can go and sit at the beach and have $1 million view without the $1 million price tag.
Next one I'd do would be investing. If something could do investing for us. And it doesn't need to be
Problem
lots.
is, if we're doing it for everyone else as well, so
But-
it would not work.
If it was a model that was investing on a global scale for a region,
Yeah.
I wouldn't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't the country, personal people picking things, and it was a model recognizing for the country where people should be putting their super,
Yep.
I would be infinitely on board with investing into those models. I feel like the world wants to trade better, right? Everyone needs to know what to buy, when to buy. These models could provide access to that type of information.
That is one of the areas AI is already heavily involved.
Yeah.
Most of the decisions made to buy or sell, to do a trade, are not made by humans now. They're made by algorithms, really.
Yeah, that's so true.
But on a personal level, not. I want something that does that for me.
Yep.
Yeah, just for you.
But what if the question was, what in the problem in the world could you solve by using AI? Which problem would you solve?
Ooh, disease. Vectorings. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
be getting rid of diseases and
Disease.
cancer next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clean water would be a good one.
I don't know if you need AI to solve the clean water issue. Again, I think that boils down to infrastructure. Like, I feel like if the model told us this is what you need to solve for it, it would still be, do we have the political willpower to invest the money into it?
Maybe that's what the AI could help with, how to put together an organization to advocate for something like that and actually get results. The AI could be the CEO.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'd still stick with cancer.
Yeah.
Cancer and diseases. Maybe that's selfish because that's like my two biggest fears. And
Yeah,
I feel like those are the things that could realistically take me out.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
you've
that's
got
silly. I got a motorbike parked up front, but like,
you've got water.
yeah, well, yeah.
You have
that's
clean
exactly it.
water. If you didn't have clean water, maybe that would be your, I need clean water.
Mhm.
Well, you wouldn't be on a podcast if you didn't have clean water. So
But I feel like the diseases and cancers are the biggest things
Yeah.
affecting most of the third world countries. I don't like that word. Is there another world developing country?
you're developing.
there you go.
Yeah. Anyway,
What would you? Come on, I feel like we got yours yet.
I mean, yeah, getting them to run a business, company, a non-profit that would do something like ensure people in some of these developing countries had clean water and good sanitary conditions. I think that would be an interesting project. I mean, you know, what trade has improved our health the most in the last 300 years? It's not doctors,
no, it's not.
plumbers. Serious.
Would be that?
Clean water and sanitation has made the biggest difference to our health, bigger than anything else.
I suppose that's what made Rome what it is.
Yeah, quite possibly.
I would add one more in there. Laws. I would eliminate lawyers. I would eliminate judges. I would eliminate juries. I would put it all into an AI model.
Well,
Oh, but how? Well, how?
If it was the law that everyone agreed to, I feel you should be able to strip the human element out where people look at a pretty face, a woman, and they're like, she gets half what I give the guy
what about
who's grizzly
variables?
and ugly and
What about variables like
you can account for that in the law, but you shouldn't have a human person that is affected by how you affect them on a personal level. Like, she's beautiful, she's well spoken, she seems innocent. That shouldn't be able to come into whether
the
it's
empathy?
just.
Strip the empathy for the person that you're judging.
I feel justice is just. It is not a personal thing.
Yeah,
It
I
shouldn't
think
be
the
a personal
justice
thing.
system is
I think it's
completely,
flawed.
utterly,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
I agree with that
you-
plan.
your problem is the justice system has its biases. So you'd replace those biases with a set of AI biases. All AIs are biased as well.
Well, if they were the rules, though, is it a bias or is it what we agreed is this is what will happen if X occurs?
Why do we have judges to decide what sentence should be? It's because there are always different circumstances.
Have a plead option in there, and that's when it gets submitted to someone. But I feel like most of these things that go in there and waste millions or hundreds of millions of dollars from any of these things. Perfect example. An oil company spills oil all over into the ocean, and they buy off a judge and they get fraction of the time spent in jail,
Mm.
where a man crashes a car, accidentally kills someone drunk, and he gets 20 years.
Yep.
Right? It should not be a human element involved in that process. It should look at the damages done and automatically be prescriptive on what happens as a result after the fact. That's just.
Humans haven't done a very good job at coming up with a good system.
No.
That's why I feel a computer could do better.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I feel we're the flawed element in the justice system.
Yeah.
I mean, AIs are all biased. I mean, there was a paper that came out in 2014, which is known as the Husky and the Wolf paper.
Mhm.
Its real title is "How Do I Know That I Can Trust You?" And they trained the AI model up to tell the difference between a husky and a wolf, and it got pretty good at it. And before you knew where you were, it would get most of the things right, but some of it would get wrong. And so they dug into ones that it was getting wrong. And there were quite a few times where it was saying that's a husky when it was really a wolf.
Mhm.
Do you know why it was saying it was a husky and not a wolf?
Right.
Because there was snow in the photo. What it had learned, unbeknown to us, was that because in the data set, most of the photos with snow in were a husky,
Yeah.
not a wolf. It had learned snow means it's a husky. So that's a bias. So
Mm.
AIs would do the same thing in law. Well, at least the way we know how to train them at the moment, in the science fiction future, they'll be a lot better.
Mm.
But at the moment, and that's why people are reluctant to use AIs for some of these things, they have biases. If you give it data to say where most photos of a husky have snow, they'll associate snow with being a husky. If you give it data where people in a particular group of people normally behave in a particular way, whatever that will be, it will think that's the way that group will always behave. But it might be the data that's biased, not the group of people.
I feel like we're still coming back to, again, like we're introducing information that wouldn't matter in a crime, right? Like I don't need to tell you what the race of the person is. I don't need to tell you the sex. All I need to tell you is human being did X, and this was the outcome of what they did. Reference the laws and figure out if X was occurred at this person, at this age bracket, what should the punishment be? Also take into consideration this person is a trillionaire or something else like that. You know what I mean? But I don't need to tell you their sex. I don't need to tell you anything else that doesn't matter to the crime. And that's what I mean. Like, you're describing the things that we fundamentally get wrong. I don't think we need to build that into a justice system. I don't
Maybe
know.
not. Why do we have rules like you should be able to face your accuser? So currently in the justice system, it does revolve around people seeing each other, and you see what gender they
Yeah.
are, you see their background. But yeah, in a science fiction future, I like your idea.
Anyway, Arvin.
We're way over time. This is the oldest.
gone over
longest
time?
set. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Oh,
okay.
we are well over time.
we are well and truly over. But this
Yeah.
has definitely been one of the funner ones that I've ever had.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this. I really
Yeah, well, thanks.
appreciate your
I
time.
thought you would enjoy this.
Thanks for inviting me.
I did.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And we will definitely stay in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good?
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. We appreciate your time, mate.
Me again. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tech Panel. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected. A big thank you to our major sponsor, Softlink Integrations, for powering today's episode. And join us again on the next episode of the Tech Panel, where tech minds meet.